Have you ever wondered what it would be like if more legendary Pokemon got regional variants? Well, ever since the legendary birds got regional variants of their own in the Crown Tundra DLC expansion for Sword and Shield, I started to wonder this myself, and I actually made a video on the topic a little while back. However, I did not cover every single legendary in that video, which is why we are here to do it again today with another brand new batch of legendaries. We are going to be covering the Weather Trio today, Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza, and I am really excited to show you what I have come up with, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so as stated, we are going to be focusing on the main box art legendary trio of the Hoenn games in this video. I've decided to momentarily skip over Johto, but we will definitely come back to them later. But for now, we're going to be focusing on what we can do with the three main legendary Pokemon of the Hoenn region, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. The artwork of the designs in this video was commissioned from my good friend Alestiva076, who you can check out with the links in the description, and I highly recommend doing so, because as you will soon see, he does amazing work. With that said though, I am going to start first by highlighting Groudon. Now, the thing about Groudon, as well as the entire Weather Trio as a whole, is that they are the Weather Trio. They already have a very specific, distinct, and important role to them that literally defines their identities. So when it comes to making a regional variant of these Pokemon, as with a lot of other legendaries as well, since they are so entrenched in who they are as Pokemon, I thought it was important to maintain who they are as Pokemon and keep that identity intact as much as possible while still changing them up at the same time. Basically, even though we are going to be changing up these Pokemon, I didn't want to change them so much as to completely sort of strip them of their identity. So for example, I'm not going to be giving Groudon, the Pokemon who rules over the land, a flying type because I just feel like that's a little too far out there for this type of Pokemon. With that said though, Alestiva and I have come up with something that I think you guys will like a lot regardless. So without further ado, here is our regional variant of Groudon. Now this regional variant of Groudon is a pure rock type, because as I said, being the Pokemon who rules over the land is kind of a big deal to Groudon, so I felt like it still needed to be something that could hold that role and not be too different from what it was originally. However, we were still able to change up its visual appearance quite significantly, and if I do say so myself, Alestiva pulled this one off quite nicely, because I think this arguably looks even better than the original Groudon's design. I imagine that while the original Groudon kind of rules the land from the very core of the Earth itself, this regional Groudon could rule the land from a surface level perspective and be found in tall mountains and other craggy, rocky areas. Another reason, though, that I felt like we did need to stay somewhat close in terms of theming with this regional variant is not only due to the role that Groudon plays as the ruler of the land, but also because of the rivalry that it has with Kyogre, because that is another huge element of this Pokemon's identity. And speaking of Kyogre, why don't we go ahead and take a look at it next. Now, the appearance of its regional variant was determined by the same factors that determined the appearance of our regional Groudon, that being that as the ruler of the seas, I wanted to stay relatively close to that kind of theming, so it wasn't too different to the point where it felt off for a Pokemon with that title. I also wanted to make sure it was still able to maintain a rivalry with Groudon, specifically with the regional Groudon that we have created, because it's going to be the regional variants of these Pokemon that have their own little clash of the Titans, and with all of those factors in mind, this is what we ultimately came up with for a regional variant Kyogre. This regional Kyogre is a pure ice type, not only because ice is obviously related to water, which is the original Kyogre's typing, but also because ice plays a big role in the waters of the world. So this Kyogre would be one that specifically roams the Arctic oceans of the Pokemon world in the original Kyogre's stead. It also creates a bit of an interesting dynamic between this regional Kyogre and the regional Groudon that we have created, because with their rock and ice typings, not only do they maintain that sort of relationship and rivalry to one another compared to their original counterparts, but this gives the regional Groudon the type advantage over the regional Kyogre, which is the opposite from what it was in their original forms, where the original Kyogre has the advantage over the original Groudon. So that also kind of adds a little something too to sort of even the playing field with these legendary Pokemon, who are of course so well known for battling so often against one another. However, that is of course not all there is to talk about when it comes to these Pokemon though, because there is still one more legendary from this group that we have to cover, and that would be none other than the trio master of the Weather Trio itself, Rayquaza. Now, Rayquaza is primarily known as the Pokemon who is supposed to quell and control both Groudon and Kyogre whenever they get into a fierce battle with one another. And just like with the regional forms of Groudon and Kyogre, I needed to keep this part of Rayquaza's identity overall relatively intact in order for it to essentially still be the same Pokemon. And that is what ultimately led us to this design for a regional variant of Rayquaza. Now, this regional form of Rayquaza is a Steel Flying type instead of a Dragon Flying type. And the reason for this is because as a Steel type, it will have a type advantage over both Groudon and Kyogre, signifying and symbolizing its ability to quell and control both of them. However, the Steel type was not given to this regional Rayquaza just for this reason, because it also ties into who Rayquaza is as a Pokemon and what it is known for. And one of the things that it is known for, other than being the trio master of the Weather Trio, is its ability to fly through the ozone layer and even into space. The idea is that as this Rayquaza ascended from the ozone layer and got further and further into the depths of space, celestial metals from space began to coat its body and gave it this new Steel-type form. And I think it would be really cool to emphasize the celestial metal part of this Pokemon's design by really honing in on the fact that this metal comes from space, and it's some kind of weird metal that is not known to us. And you could do this by giving this Pokemon an ability that maybe allows it to not be weak to fire-type attacks, which is of course Steel's main primary weakness. That would just make this Pokemon all the more powerful, and I don't know if it would make it too powerful, but it certainly would help to make this regional version of Rayquaza feel all the more legendary and feel like a true trio master. With that said though, that is what I was able to come up with for some regional variants of the Weather Trio. What do you think about these regional variants and the possibility of the Weather Trio getting regional variants? Let me know about that in the comments below. Be sure to leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more if you're new. I will be back with another brand new video very soon as well, so until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I really, really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.